Amidst the bustling clamor of a local marketplace, a young employee, Peter, who has Down syndrome, found it hard to keep his composure on his initial day. During work hours, tranquility reigned, but that serenity was abruptly broken when a furious customer started to publicly embarrass him, using harsh language in front of everyone. Observed silently, hesitant to intervene. Unknown to all was the fact that within a well-known Hollywood star's customers were witnessing the unfolding scene and his subsequent actions would result in everyone lost for words. Let's move forward with our tale. Tell us your viewing location. If you find yourself captivated by tales like this, consider subscribing. Heading to the channel, since tomorrow we're scheduled to. Here's another unique tale for you, Peter. A 21-year-old male diagnosed with Down syndrome was perpetually recognized for his compassion and commitment in spite of his infectious enthusiasm. He grappled with internal conflicts that were largely incomprehensible to others. Observe his connection with his past. His stepfather, a man characterized by coldness and abuse, had inflicted deep, lasting wounds upon him. Brief glimpses of self-worth flashed by. A young Peter seated at the table. As his stepfather launched verbal attacks. You'll never achieve your full potential, son. Avoid using a harsh or unkind approach. Phrases reverberated in his thoughts as though it were. Yesterday proved challenging, yet Peter remained steadfast. Even with everything considered, he resolved to be more powerful than any language intended to. Reduce his essence today, that spirit of his unwavering determination was his most notable quality. The local market, though modest in size, was bustling with activity. Rows meticulously filled with diverse merchandise and the clatter of moving carts. The polished floor reflected, casting its sheen across the air. Peter entered through the primary entrance. Adorned in his uniform, he exuded pride. Met by Jack, the manager, who extended a warm welcome. Greeted him with a warm, encouraging smile, welcoming him to. We're delighted to welcome you to the team, Peter. Peter enthusiastically grasped Jack's hand upon meeting him. You're welcome, sir. I'll give my all. As soon as Peter arrived, training commenced. Began his work by organizing items to carrying groceries. He paid close attention, mentally registering. His enthusiasm was evident in every single detail. Unobserved by his co-workers, yet nonetheless, were there subtle looks and remarks. Regarding his slower speed, he tends to be a bit delayed. Didn't he? One of the colleagues, they murmured. Unaware Peter had been listening, Peter acted as if they hadn't seen and carried on. He was driven to prove his worth through his work. By the end of his shift, he had attained the ability to drained but filled with pride at having finished his. Peter's first day concluded with him finishing up the task of bagging. The last customer's final purchases were met with a heavy sigh. Originated from that line, he quickly looked with a sense of relief, acknowledging his shift. Was almost finished, yet he remained oblivious. An observer in the queue gazing at. Increasing restlessness flickered in this person's gaze. Became more constricted as Peter remained unaware of. The rising tension was palpable, accompanied by a growing sound of the market's electronically operated doors moving gracefully. Karen's arrival was declared by Open. A 45-year-old female presenting with a stiff posture and a palpable sense of her own excellence. The sound of heels reverberated through the tiled hall as she strode purposefully down the central aisle. Karen's face held a stern expression, already exuding disapproval beforehand. Even in her evaluation of the circumstances, she halted, suddenly upon encountering the checkout lines, exhaling a dramatic sigh of. This aggravation stems from the fact that these stores are perpetually unaware of. While sorting through her belongings, she mumbled to herself, loud enough for other patrons to hear. Seizing a shopping cart, she propelled it ahead, swiftly navigating through with a sense of immediacy. She dashed down the aisles, as if competing in a sprint. Karen swiftly chose items, hurling them into the car with heartfelt abandon. Consider any small hurdle like a child's, her route, or a different shopper contrasting. The price announcement was met with impatient stares, and disapproving chuckles followed as she filled her cart. Karen made her way to the checkout line. Didn't last long, yet to someone with such lacking patience, it seemed to stretch on forever. She positioned myself in Peter's line, observing him from afar. Distance while he diligently collected past purchases by Peter. The deliberate movements drew Karen's attention. Is this actually happening? She whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. With a roll of her eyes, she scoffed. How can someone be like this? The work was progressing slowly here when it finally. Karen forcefully placed her belongings on the counter. It was her turn. The counter pushing them onward as though to physically manifest her irritation. Peter offered her a courteous smile and offered a shy, "Good morning, ma'am," met with a frosty stare and, well, I sure hope this turns out well because. Peter, I'm not going to be available all day, he started, scrutinizing Karen's belongings with attention, reviewing the codes and consolidating them. Though meticulously composed, her gaze was intensely penetrating, felt seared into him every movement he made elicited an audible response. A weary sigh, or perhaps the restless tapping of her hands resting on the countertop. A question hangs in the air. Is this going to? Karen inquired, leaning forward, her voice laced with anticipation. To be frank, it genuinely feels as though I'm observing this at a slower pace. His face flushed visibly, and his body started to shake ever so slightly, and he attempted to accelerate his unease, exacerbated his, as he coordinated. A package went astray, grabbed his hand, and it slipped from his grasp, sending it crashing to the floor, causing him. He swiftly lowered himself to the ground to pick up. Holy cow! He's incapable of even carrying a bag, Karen exclaimed, looking around as though desiring affirmation from others. Customer Peter persistently attempted to complete his work continued, but his breaths became more labored, and it was evident he was about to. Karen, with tears in her eyes, crossed her arms and leaned. Even nearer the counter, an individual requires. She declared, "We need to take action on this right now." She exclaimed in a raised voice, "This is absurd. I don't have an eternity to waste on this." A murmur of ineptitude started to spread among the other patrons as the atmosphere grew tense. The line expanded with every moment. The second Karen was poised to proceed with another. Approached the counter more closely when an unforeseen occurrence started to alter the market ambience surrounding Karen at present. Clearly incensed, he advanced, and she directly addressed Peter with her voice, shrouded in contempt. It's not okay. You really shouldn't be employed here if you're not up to the task of handling something as straightforward as picking up groceries. Who employed you? Because it was undoubtedly beyond. Peter's eyes dilated in astonishment at the intensity of the force. He strived to uphold his composure despite her words. Calmness, yet his hand shook. Meanwhile, as things deteriorated, Karen sought out other individuals waiting in line, searching for support. Regarding her verbal attack, is this what you all perceive? This situation is causing a delay for everyone because of. She pointed at him expressively, as though performing quickly. This is a fast. The lane isn't his forte, and he's definitely not known for his speed. Harsh words pierced Peter deeply. He dropped his eyes to the blades, attempting to concentrate on the grocery items. However, another bag escaped his grasp and collapsed to the ground, accompanied by the sound of the bag striking the tiles resonated with increased intensity. Look at that, Karen said, her voice dripping with disdain. With a sarcastic laugh, he couldn't even contain himself. This bag is utterly deplorable. Peter sighed, swallowing hard. His breathing was ragged and uneven, struggling as he attempted to Composing himself, he realized he needed to complete the transaction. However, the strain and humiliation were escalating. Intolerable. He turned his gaze towards Jack, the manager, was engrossed in throughout the store. Another assignment met with Karen's scathing remarks, brought back painful recollections for Peters. He remembered, from times gone by, sitting at the kitchen, the boy, as a child, witnessed his stepfather's violent actions. You won't encounter any insults like those directed at him ever again. You're absolutely useless, kid. And that's a fact everyone recalls. Peters slumped his shoulders, attempting to withdraw from the biting remarks, but he was always discovered, and his feelings remained unchanged. A constricting sensation in his throat, as he was now. Back in those days, when I was standing before Karen, he murmured, "I just want to offer assistance." His voice was scarcely audible. Karen, observing Peter's visibly shaken state, taking another step forward, she indicated with her, pointed at him as if scolding a child. "You require instruction on how to perform. You're seriously hindering everyone's progress with this real job." The voice resonated with such force that it reverberated throughout the store, captivating the attention of shoppers in different sections. Some customers. Whispers started to circulate among them. Several appeared to tacitly concur, while several people appeared distinctly uneasy. Many reached for their cell phones. Capturing the developing scene, Peter attempted to reply, but words refused to form. Tears welled up. There was a glimmer in his eyes, yet he struggled to maintain composure. Preventing their descent, at that instant, the distinct sound of heavy footsteps drawing closer. Karen's line captivated everyone's focus. His eyes remained fixed on Peter, halted by someone who had at last chose to enter the market as it appeared to be enveloped by an awkward silence. The customary banter of cashiers mingled with a low hum of shopping carts rolling smoothly across the tiled floor. The floor's hum and the bustle of shoppers were all overshadowed by the thick tension of the air that loomed large. All gazes were fixed on. Currently, at the checkout lane where Karen, she angrily indicated with her hand, her voice sharp, echoing across the expanse. She declared it a waste of her time. With a dramatic flourish of her arms, I exclaim, "I can't. I feel compelled to address this." The remaining customers in the queue maintained there, fixated on their phones or staring at the pavement, clearly uncomfortable yet reluctant to. A senior woman at the rear of intervened. She inclined her body towards her husband and, "Isn't anyone going to speak up?" That young boy appears utterly disoriented. The husband hesitated, his shoulders rising in a slight shrug. "We're unsure and want to avoid causing. On the contrary, we find ourselves facing difficulties with Karen." Appeared utterly oblivious to the distress she was inflicting. She was overwhelmed by her own anger, her voice escalating in volume as Peter's. Evidently, patience was wearing away. The market, once inviting, now felt stifling. Peter looked around, observing the blend of scornful sympathy and uncaring eyes looked on around him. The fluorescent light illuminating him from above made his sight was clouded as though it were heightening her state of vulnerability. Karen, persistently carried on her dictation, composing with intention, endeavored to highlight each word meticulously for the advantage for other customers waiting in line. "This is the value we're investing in for this type. He's incredibly sluggish when it comes to providing service. The tension in the line is intolerable." The feeling was almost physically present, a palpable heaviness, imposing burdens on all customers. Attempted to disregard it, despite the presence of others. Restlessly shifted his gaze between Karen and Peter, silently wished that someone would step forward. Peter is still working on finishing his bagging. The groceries ultimately called for. The courage to express himself manifested in his voice, shaking almost silently but brimming with genuine remorse. "Ma'am, I apologize." Karen, striving her utmost, turned, angling sharply towards him, leaning over. Met with a gaze of utter contempt. Attempting it simply isn't sufficient, not for a job. In this manner, individuals here have schedules too. Holding on when it's time to let go is a waste of everyone's time. Peter looked down, feeling utterly inadequate. Of responding, his trembling already. Another bag slipped from their grasp and landed on the floor. The sound reverberated throughout the market each. His humiliation being magnified by the noise. Karen emitted a short, spiteful laugh. Oh my goodness, he can't even manage to carry a bag. This is... Sadly, some customers started exchanging detectable glances. A younger man felt uneasy in the middle stood, hesitating before, reaching for his phone to capture the. He then looked at the woman beside him and murmured, "This is terrible, but whose?" He was going to stop her, but the woman simply shrugged. Her expression was uneasy, nervousness radiating from her. "I'm not looking to engage in any aggression." In the meantime, an elderly woman seated at the rear of the line appeared to be growing more confident. She shifted her purse to a more comfortable position on her shoulder and advanced cautiously, then paused. Viewing Peter with compassion, the decision to take action weighed heavily on me. She wasn't certain if she was physically capable of supporting Karen. Noticing that no one disagreed with her, viewed it as motivation to keep going. Looked back at Peter and continued in an even, a louder tone asserted, "If you can't do, then, after completing this task, you should move on to something else." It's time for someone to let you know about Peter. Clearly shaken, he focused intently on his. He took deep breaths, but the air, his sweaty hands, feeling thin, grasped desperately. He kept hold of the bags, his gaze unwavering. At the counter, staying clear of Karen. Jack's intense stare swept across the store. The manager started to finally perceive. Something felt amiss. He looked in that direction. Peter's checkout line, however, was located too distantly. He frowned, trying to hear more clearly. Approached the commotion, but was interrupted by another customer requesting aid. In the meantime, Karen persisted in her tirade. She crossed her arms and faced the other direction. Customers waiting in line hoping for confirmation due. As you can all see, we're experiencing a delay. Due to him, it's ridiculous that someone. This is operating at a rapid pace. The murmuring along the line intensified but remained hushed. No one possessed the bravery to challenge her. Every second stretched out interminably, and the discomfort was nearly impossible to tolerate. Portion of the aisle concealed by. A man stood amidst a display of goods on the shelves. Despite the unfolding scene, he maintained a calm posture. However, his facial expression was unreadable. Dressed plainly, he merged seamlessly with the crowd, yet his gaze remained fixed on thee. As the situation developed, he crossed his arms. He tilted his head slightly, as though scrutinizing every nuance of his expression. Was characterized not by surprise, but by calmness. He contemplated as if he had witnessed something. Prior to Peter's shift in focus, he still concentrated on. His work overlooked the man's presence, yet sensed a delicate change in the air around him pressed in, as if it were suffocating. The gravity of the situation was about to become. Although he was balanced, he was unsure of how Karen, yet remained unaware of everything. Her focus was solely on her surroundings. Peter and his growing. The market's tension was palpable. To arrive at a point of no return, the whispers escalate too. The volume increased, and the customers' disappointment hung heavy in the air, yet still no. The man remained standing quietly, his actions unchanged. Advanced, taking a step closer to becoming more observable to customers waiting in line. His eyes were locked on Karen, and he appeared to be awaiting the opportune time to take action. The atmosphere crackled with a palpable change, and suddenly, customers started to become aware of his presence, feeling that something important was Peter, unaware, was about to experience something briefly. He raised his eyes and locked eyes with the man. It was a look that exuded both serenity and Peter's determination offered a brief glimpse, a moment of respite, despite the fact that he didn't comprehend the reason for. Karen was about to utter another word, her voice, already ascending in pitch as the man advanced another step the hole. The market appeared to be suspended in anticipation. Something was on the verge of changing. The market tension had escalated to its peak. Karen, at her peak of agitation, continued to gesture wildly, elevating her voice, each word laced with intensity. With a mixture of impatience and disdain, Peter proceeded with, shaking hands, fought to maintain their steadiness. Concentrated, yet his body felt immobilized. The overwhelming weight of the instant, the unspeaking gazes of the customers in, only intensified his sense of separateness, and then a soothing yet resolute voice escaped the stifling atmosphere. Those words reverberated, sufficient unto themselves. The market embodying both authority and searching for serenity, everyone turned. The origin of the unforeseen. Karen's movements halted abruptly, surprised upon being approached from across. In the aisle stood a tall man, exuding confidence. He strode toward the scene. He moved deliberately, taking each step with care, held a burden that drew everyone's. Hey, customers in line. Once still, whispering started to move. Among themselves, they wonder who that woman is, inquired, peering intently to see more clearly. Wait, is that him? A younger man asked. He was already reaching for his phone to start recording. Keanu Reeves entered the public eye, wearing a plain shirt and casual attire. He could have blended in unnoticed in his pants. In any other instance, except for that precise moment his presence was undeniably apparent. Karen is still attempting to preserve her composure shifted towards him with an manifestation of irritation blended with bewilderment, and you believe you can simply come here and give me instructions on how to behave towards her. The voice dripped with sarcasm, yet there was a touch of nervousness was discernible in her voice. Keanu. He halted a few steps back, his gaze unwavering. Although his demeanor stayed composed. He didn't tell you what to do, he replied. His voice, calm yet authoritative, conveyed a clear command. I'm saying what you're currently engaged in is. Karen, startled, blinked, clearly caught off guard. You don't even comprehend what's wrong, guard. I'm simply presenting the facts as they are. This boy is hindering everyone's progress, Keanu. Permitted a slight smile, though. The intensity in his gaze remained unwavering. The reality is, he's fulfilling his duties, and you've opted to make him the subject of ridicule for this. There exists a significant distinction between stating facts, wielded as a weapon. Whispers from the nearby customers became more intense, but this time the focus. Peter was still on Karen's mind, not Peter's. Behind the counter, a figure stood frozen, looking, Keanu, his eyes wide with uncertainty. I couldn't comprehend the reason behind this man's actions. He hesitated before entering, but a wave of relief washed over him, as though someone had at last listened to him. An unvoiced cry for assistance, Keanu took a step. As he drew closer to Peter, a tenderness appeared on his face. What's your name? He inquired, his tone conveying both peaceful and reassuring, yet Peter the young. His voice trembled as the man stammered, Keanu. Peter, you're doing fantastic work, he nodded. Don't allow anyone to persuade you. Alternatively, he softly placed a hand resting on Peter's shoulder, as though bestowing some of his confidence upon. We all experience tough days, but those. Don't tell us who we are, do you? Recognize that Peter slowly nodded his eyes, brimming with unshed tears, he couldn't struggle to find the right words to reply. The overwhelming weight he sensed in those moments now appeared somewhat. Karen, now noticeably less confident, seemed unsure of. She crossed her arms and exhaled. A quick, jittery chuckle. Look, I'm not sure who you believe yourself to be. However, this is irrelevant to you. He simply wants quick service, and it's obvious that, unqualified for the task, Keanu looked to her, his countenance altering to something. I'm a firm believer in. Showing respect doesn't require any expense. Caring, and you've obviously lost sight of. Karen snorted derisively, but her voice no longer possessed the same strength I once had. The right to feel frustrated. I'm experiencing a waste. Keanu gave a small nod in response. My time here. You absolutely have a right to feel discontented by what you lack is the right to express that frustration by an undeserving individual, particularly someone who's there to assist the customers who had remained inactive up until that point. Now, a woman began to speak up. The person in the middle of the line spoke at a volume that could be heard clearly. For all to hear, he is correct. It's not. It's not right to treat the young man in this way. Someone else positioned nearer to Karen. We're all queued up, waiting patiently. No one. Why are you so sure that complaining is what else is doing? There are differing voices of encouragement for her. Keanu's growth commenced as Karen surveyed her surroundings, understanding the support she had anticipated. Instead, she discovered she wasn't there. Amidst a sea of disapproving stares, the customers signified their agreement with nods, though many still capturing the moment on their mobile devices. The market energy had been entirely transformed. What had previously been a scene of unity was now exemplified by oppression. Before departing, Keanu turned back to, just keep being yourself, he told Peter, beaming because of the wonderful person you already are. Sufficient. As Keanu walked out of, customers persisted in the market. While applauding, Peter was aware of that moment. Will be remembered for a long time. He gazed at the line and beheld the affirming and uplifting statements. For the first time in an extended period, he experienced a sensation of the fading echo of Karen's heels was all that remained. As she departed from the markets, automatic doors, a momentary hush followed by. After her departure, it happened rapidly, was substituted by hushed whispers from the customers. Discussions regarding what had recently occurred unfurled across the length of the line with. Some are still watching the videos. Had noted on there, she was not entitled to speak to him on the phone. In that way, an older woman commented to the person beside her was incredible. I never thought I'd encounter someone like Keanu Reeves. Another customer would appear here. Still responded in amazement. Meanwhile, as others did, pondered the event. Peter stood immobile, frozen behind the counter, still absorbing all that had. As he stared at his hands, a sense of disbelief washed over him, attempting to comprehend how a moment of shame had morphed into something incredibly influential. Jack, in the market leader who had at last decided to come over to assess the situation and placed a hand on Peter's shoulder. All right? Peter, are you okay? With sincere concern, Peter looked at Jack. He offered a slight smile and replied, Yes, I am. All right. There was a noticeable change in his voice, laced with a hint of confidence that I had never been there prior to. Keanu's words reverberated in his thoughts. Your value is not determined by your speed of bagging. Your value as a person is not determined by the groceries you buy. Peter inhaled deeply, as if letting go of a burden he had endured for far too long. Upon Peter's return to work, the customers. From that point forward, his treatment changed. The woman offered him a warm smile as she handed him. You're doing a fantastic job on those items, Peter. No one has the right to say otherwise. An older gentleman in the queue also emphasized his point. Speak up, son. Keep going. You've possessed greater courage than the majority of individuals. Here, these small yet heartfelt words were similar to bricks reconstructing Peter's. Build self-esteem individually, one at a time with the ambience of the market utterly. Forge a sense of unity now. The air buzzed with conversation as customers chatted amongst themselves. Many praising Peter to themselves, examining the effects of minor deeds of a young woman still embracing kindness. Jack received a remarkable phone call. Did you witness how he managed everything? Share this on social media. It's crucial for people to understand just how remarkable Peter is. Jack smiled and nodded, indicating his agreement, but at this moment, the most crucial aspect is ensuring that he is aware of the asterisk. That surprisingly, the market felt more like a community than a location. Commerce among those who had only been, that had been waiting minutes earlier now were chatting like longtime companions when his. Finally, the shift concluded, and Peter walked in the locker room. He slowly made his way to his seat and sat down. A wooden bench observed his uniform. Looking back on all that day's events unfolded for such a prolonged period that thought he was unseen, so people. He only perceived his errors or his deviations. But today carried a distinct feeling. Keanu's words had sparked a fire inside him, something. He scarcely felt any pride in himself. He recalled his mother's words stating that, telling him about how crucial he was that morning. Now, in relation to his family, he was starting to, I reckon it. Beyond the bustling market, Keanu Reeves strolled, quietly approaching a parked car that wasn't his, desiring recognition or acclaim for himself. This was merely another ordinary day spent doing what he thought was correct before obtaining. He cast a glance back at as he entered the car. He smiled one last time, knowing it was the final time he'd be in the market. That instant wasn't centered on him, but rather on Peter and the manner in which a solitary action of empathy has the power to alter the trajectory of a day, maybe even a life the following day. The impact of the event started to spread through the video. Keanu Reeves defending Peter became a viral sensation, utilized by millions worldwide. Hash symbols like asterisk, asterisk hash, esteem for Peter backslash backslash and hashtag kindness is important hashtag. The hashtag trended drawing asterisk asterisk, emphasis on the significance of treating every individual with dignity. Those who had been present in the marketplace that day were their experiences serving as a source of inspiration for others to consider the impact that seemingly minor actions could have. A large Peter, who had previously harbored a fear of, was profoundly affected by. Recognition was now viewed as a symbol of resilience and fortitude. The narrator concludes the narrative with a contemplation on every day, the power of choice is bestowed upon us. The chance to be kind, a lift others up rather than tearing them down, regardless of how minor the action appears to be, can have a significant influence ultimately. We all share the responsibility of creating a world where respect and compassion are the standard, not a rarity. The following morning, as Peter made his way to the market felt unusual. He sensed it. No longer bore the burden of harsh words that had once tormented him. Instead, he conveyed words of encouragement and the support he had been given the previous day. Upon his arrival at the market, customers in the checkout line welcomed him with a friendly atmosphere. Expressions of encouragement and smiles. He returned the smile, feeling a sense of belonging. In that instant, he realized he would forever be without. Once more, solitary, alone asterisk. If you like this tale, we have many more. More to touch your heart. Click here. Screen to discover more tales of hope, empathy, and toughness.